Caitlin Clark's rise has brought unprecedented attention to the WNBA, but that spotlight has now exposed a deep fracture between the players and the league. Despite a jaw-dropping offer that would raise minimum salaries to $225,000 and top contracts to $1 million, the players' union swiftly rejected the proposal. Why? Because beneath the impressive numbers lies a series of trade-offs, like the removal of free housing and vague promises of revenue sharing, that players see as undermining their long-term security.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
The offer, though historic on paper, may be less about empowerment and more about optics, especially as league transparency remains elusive. For a league riding a wave of cultural and commercial momentum, this breakdown couldn't come at a worse time. Clark is more than just a rookie sensation. She's the engine behind record ratings and packed arenas. If negotiations spiral into a lockout, the league risks losing not only its brightest star, but also its chance to finally secure mainstream legitimacy. The rejection signals a shift. Players aren't just looking for big numbers. They want structural respect and a future they can trust. The WNBA just offered its players a historic contract. Quadruple the salary, 7-figure guarantees, revenue sharing, all of it. And Caitlin Clark, along with the players' union, turned it down. Not delayed, not negotiated, straight up rejected. And now the league is spinning. This wasn't some modest raise. We're talking about a minimum salary of $225,000, average pay shooting past $500,000, max contracts hitting $1 million guaranteed, with potential bonuses tied to revenue growth. This was the type of deal that, on paper, could have reshaped the economics of women's sports. Owners thought it was generous, maybe even too generous. They expected pushback on the fine print. Instead, they got a flat refusal. And what's unfolding now is a high-stakes standoff that could shut the entire season down. The union says it's about more than numbers. It's about trust, about transparency, about long-term control. And if you look closely, the salary jump wasn't as clean as it looked. That $1 million headline came with some serious strings attached. Concessions that players felt chipped away at quality of life and long-term sustainability. First red flag? The housing. The proposed deal stripped away one of the most essential benefits in the league. Free, team-provided housing. That perk has been a cornerstone for years, especially in a league where roster spots are limited and many players don't earn endorsement-level money. So while the salaries were going up, so with expected expenses, players would now be footing the bill for their own rent in some of the most expensive markets in the country. Critics say, you're making $500,000 a year. Paying rent shouldn't be a big deal. But that misses the point. It's not about whether the top players can afford it. It's about what it signals. The message is, we'll give you more money, but we're also going to start pulling back the things that made this league survivable for the middle and lower tier players. And the union didn't buy that trade-off. Then there's the issue of the salary cap. The numbers being floated sound big, but the math doesn't fully add up. The proposed cap increases didn't scale proportionally to the players' salaries. So while individual salaries could go up in theory, team budgets might not support more than one or two top earners without slashing the rest of the roster. Players saw that for what it was, a mirage, a promise of growth that could actually limit team depth and squeeze out role players. And the biggest problem? No transparency. The league was vague on the financials, how revenue sharing would be calculated, what percentage of league profits were included, and how future escalators were tied to growth projections. The players' union asked for clarity. They got generalized projections. No audited books. No hard numbers. So now we're in a deadlock. On one side, you've got the owners, most of them billionaires, operating a league that has historically run at a loss, but is finally seeing real momentum thanks to stars like Caitlin Clark. They're viewing this proposal as bold, generous, and maybe even a bit risky. They think the players should be thrilled. On the other side, you've got the players, who know exactly how much their value has skyrocketed in the past year, and are refusing to sign a deal that locks them into an unclear system just because the top line looks flashy. And somewhere in the middle, the fans, sponsors, networks, all watching this unfold with growing concern, because a lockout is now a real possibility. If the stalemate continues, the season could be suspended. All the progress, the sellouts, the ratings surge, the new partnerships stopped in its tracks. A shutdown now would be devastating, not just for the league's business side, but for its relevance. This was supposed to be the WNBA's breakout era, and Caitlin Clark is at the center of it. She's not just a player, she's a cultural moment. Her debut season has drawn record numbers. She's filling arenas, driving media attention, and introducing a whole new audience to the league. The timing of all this couldn't be worse. A lockout would interrupt that momentum and could permanently damage the goodwill the WNBA has spent years building. The league needs her, and they know it. But here's the uncomfortable truth. As much leverage as Clark brings, the union as a whole doesn't have the same kind of power. Not yet. Owners can afford to wait. They can eat a season. They'll take a hit, but their personal bank accounts won't flinch. Meanwhile, most players don't have the luxury of sitting out. They rely on game checks. Overseas opportunities aren't guaranteed. So this becomes a staring contest. Do the owners call the union's bluff? Do the players risk it all to make a stand over the fine print of a record-setting offer? Or does one side blink before fans lose interest and sponsors start to walk? Because here's what's really at stake. The future of the WNBA as a business. Not just as a sports league, but as a sustainable, growing brand that treats its athletes as partners, not pawns. If the players cave too quickly, they could be locking themselves into another decade of uneven power dynamics and unstable conditions. If the owners stay rigid, they could be squandering the biggest growth window they've ever had. It's a delicate balance, and both sides are playing with fire. The players are demanding more than just money. They want shared growth, real transparency, and respect that doesn't disappear when it's inconvenient. And the league? They want to retain control while appearing generous. They want praise for progress without giving up power. So far, neither side is getting what they want. And the longer this drags out, the more dangerous it becomes. Broadcast partners are watching. Sponsors are calculating risk. The casual fans who just showed up for Caitlin Clark, they're not locked in yet. A canceled season could send them right back to college hoops or elsewhere. The owners know this, but they're betting that time is on their side. They've seen other leagues survive lockouts. They've got deeper pockets. And frankly, some of them wouldn't mind using a shutdown as leverage to regain control and reassert the league structure before it changes too much. Because let's be honest, what's happening here isn't just a salary dispute. It's a turf war, a power shift. Star players are bigger than the league now, and that terrifies ownership. That's why this offer, as massive as it looks, came with so many conditions. The goal wasn't just to pay players more. It was to reshape how that power is distributed, to hand out checks but pull back benefits, to appear generous while tightening the leash. The union saw through that, and now, the entire future of the WNBA hangs in the balance. Will this moment lead to a revolutionary new era for the league, or will it collapse under the weight of pride, mistrust, and missed opportunities? Let us know where you stand. Was the union right to reject the offer, or did they just fumble a golden opportunity? Should Caitlin Clark and the other stars push for more, or protect the momentum they've already built? Hit like if you're following this story closely. Drop your thoughts in the comments, and share this with someone who needs to understand what's really happening behind the headlines. Don't forget to subscribe. We'll be tracking every twist as this showdown. Right now, the WNBA is on the edge of something massive, and just as quickly it could all collapse. For years, players fought for this moment. Bigger audiences, primetime coverage, corporate sponsors finally showing up, sellout crowds, athletes like Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Aya Wilson, Sabrina Ionescu, all pushing the game into a new era. The growth was undeniable. The league was buzzing. Then came the offer. A deal that looked like a dream at first glance. For times of pay, six-figure minimums, million-dollar max contracts, and revenue sharing baked in. Something that would have been unthinkable 5 years ago. Owners said, "Here's your money. Now let's move forward." But the players' response? No. That no hit harder than any highlight dunk or buzzer beater. Because it wasn't just about salary. It was about control, about being heard, about not accepting a glossy deal filled with fine print design to keep the power right where it always been, in the hands of billionaire owners. And that's where everything cracked open. The WNBA Players Union didn't reject the offer out of greed. They rejected it because they've seen this movie before. Big numbers with invisible strings attached. Flashy headlines hiding uncomfortable truths. A one-time salary bump with a permanent loss of benefits. $1 million carrot dangling at the end of a deal that quietly strips players of autonomy. One of the most glaring examples? The housing cut. Players weren't just being asked to pay their own rent. They were being asked to give up one of the few consistent protections the league had long provided. That's not a small ask, especially for rookies or overseas returners who don't have massive endorsements. And the message behind that change? It wasn't just, we trust you to manage your money. It was, we're giving you more cash so we can take other things away. And that's what the union wasn't okay with. Because if you're earning $225,000 but now spending $50,000 of it on rent in New York or LA and another chunk on travel or logistics that were previously covered, it's not really the same value. It's just a shell game. And players saw right through it. Then there's a salary cap problem. Yes, the individual salaries were rising, but the team's salary cap, that's where the real trap was. Because if a team only has room for 1 or 2 max contracts under the new cap, what happens to everyone else? You either push out veteran players who aren't max caliber, or you fill rosters with minimum deals and hope the stars carry the weight. The union understood this perfectly. A flashy top salary means nothing if teams can't afford to build around it. It's how you end up with 2 superstars and 10 rookies. The talent pool thins, competitiveness suffers, and suddenly, the very stars driving the league's popularity are left on teams that can't win because their rosters are hollowed out. But the biggest problem of all, the one that brought everything to a standstill, is trust, or the lack of it. The league wants players to believe the numbers, to accept projections, to take a leap of faith on shared revenue and performance-based growth. But when the players asked for hard financials, real, transparent books, the league offered vague promises and generalities. No audited statements. No binding formulas. You can't agree to a revenue-sharing model when you're not even told what the revenue is. That's what this whole fight boils down to, not just compensation, but accountability. The players don't want to be paid more just for the sake of it. They want to be paid fairly, sustainably, and with real oversight. They want a voice in how this league grows, not a paycheck that buys their silence. But here's the kicker. Owners know that, and they're betting on fatigue. They're betting that players will blink first, that the threat of a lockout will push them to sign a rush deal just to keep the momentum going. And yeah, maybe they're right to think that most players can't afford to sit out. Because while Caitlin Clark might be fine, the majority of the league isn't signing Nike deals or national campaigns. That's the owner's leverage. Time, money, patience. And yet, they're playing a dangerous game. Because what they don't have is a public, or the media, or the energy that's been building around this league, thanks to the very athletes they're trying to outmaneuver. This isn't 2003 anymore. Fans are paying attention. Journalists are digging deeper. Viewers care. And most importantly, the players know their worth. They've watched leagues in every major sport fight these battles. They've seen the rhetoric. They've seen how women athletes are always told to wait a little longer, accept a little less, be grateful for what they have. And they've had enough. This is an entitlement. This is overdue. And yet, the owners are still framing it like a gift, like they're doing players a favor with this proposal. But here's the problem. They're also the ones who refuse to provide real transparency, who try to strip essential benefits, and who still haven't explained how the cap increases will actually support deeper, competitive rosters. That's why the union said no. Not because they don't want progress, but because they've been around long enough to know that optics aren't outcomes. And now, we're staring down the barrel of a lockout. It's a total shutdown of the season. No games. No momentum. No Caitlin Clark highlights. No viral buzzer beaters. No packed arenas. All of it gone at a time when the league has never had more eyes on it. The consequences? Massive. TV partners are watching closely. Sponsors are getting nervous. New fans, especially those just tuning in because of Caitlin Clark's rise, are going to drift away fast if the league goes dark. And worst of all, it could fracture the very unity the players have spent years building. Because a work stoppage doesn't just hit the stars. It hits the bench players, the practice squad hopefuls, the international signees, the ones who can't afford a gap year. And while the union is holding strong now, a prolonged lockout could test that solidarity hard, too. So here we are, one of the fastest growing sports properties in the country, fueled by a generation of talent that's finally being recognized, facing a total standstill over the fine print of a deal that, on paper, looked like progress. It's not just a labor dispute. It's a turning point. Will the league evolve to match the value of its players, not just in salary, but in structure, support, and transparency? Or will it fall back on old power plays, dressing up control as generosity? If they choose the second path, the fallout won't just hurt this season. It'll derail everything they've been building. The fans are smarter, the athletes are louder, and the stakes are way higher than they've ever been. The crazy part is, this should have been a victory lap. The league finally offered real money, numbers that have been dreamed about for years. It could have been the beginning of a new chapter. $1 million WNBA players, increased investment, and a league finally seen as a major player in pro sports. But instead, it turned into an all-out war over trust, control, and whether progress actually means something if it comes with strings attached. And Caitlin Clark is smack in the middle of it. Not because she has to be, but because she is the face of the league right now. Whether that's fair or not, her name, her games, her clips, her merch, everything, is carrying the weight of the league's biggest boom in history. That spotlight makes her rejection of the deal all the more significant. When she says no, it's not just another player turning down an offer. It's a symbol of the entire WNBA era defining its worth on its own terms. For the owners, that rejection was a warning shot. Because Clark, like many others, isn't just thinking about today's paycheck. She's thinking about what happens 10 years from now, what this deal locks in, what it means for the next generation of women who come into the league with even more talent, more visibility, more leverage. If she takes the deal as is, what message does that send? That a raise is enough to stop asking questions? That players should be grateful, not empowered? That's not the future they're building. The union's decision wasn't about greed. It was about refusing to trade short-term shine for long-term silence. Because when you watch decades of empty promises and slow-motion reform, you learn to look at what's buried between the lines. The owners thought they were offering a breakthrough, but the players saw it for what it was, a business play wrapped in PR sparkle. And now that it's being exposed, the league is scrambling. Sponsors are calling. Media is dissecting every line of the proposed deal. Fans are trying to figure out how something that sounded so positive could turn into a potential shutdown. And players? They're holding the line, refusing to let a salary bump distract from the structural issues still baked into the system. Because this isn't just about contracts. It's about power. And that's the part the owners are trying desperately to hold on to. The truth is, WNBA owners don't want to fully share power with the players. They want the appearance of partnership, without the reality of it. They're fine with writing bigger checks, so long as they don't have to show you the ledger, so long as they keep control over the schedule, over the housing, over who gets paid what, when, and why. Revenue sharing? Great, they say, but don't ask how we calculate it. Team cap space? Sure, we'll increase it, but not enough to support more than a couple stars. More freedom, more voice, more transparency? Suddenly, that's where they draw the line. The math doesn't lie. If players take this deal without protections, they give up far more than they gain. They lose the leverage they just earned. They give owners the ability to point to one shiny deal and say, "See, we took care of it." They end the conversation before it really even begins. That's why this rejection matters. Because it sends a message the league can't ignore. We're not settling. Not anymore. Not when the stands are full. Not when the jersey sales are climbing. Not when the TV ratings are up and the cameras are rolling. The owners know they're in a tight spot. A lockout right now doesn't just freeze games. It risks freezing momentum. And the truth is, this isn't 2018. You can't ghost the media anymore. You can't spin A. Shut down without taking serious damage. Not when a league is finally getting the cultural traction it's craved for decades. A lockout now means losing fan trust. It means losing sponsors. It means losing the Caitlin Clark wave, the one that's brought millions of new eyes to the league. You throw that away and you don't get it back. Not without years of rebuilding. But the players? They're still holding firm because they know the value they bring. And they're tired of being asked to accept partial progress just to keep the peace. They don't want to burn the league down. They want to build it, right? With real money, yes, but also with transparency, with respect, with benefits that don't disappear the second someone in a boardroom decides it's time to modernize. That's not too much to ask. And it's not just Caitlin Clark. This is Aya Wilson, Brianna Stewart, Nneka Agwamike, the veterans who fought for the stage to exist, now demanding that it evolve responsibly. The younger players? They're watching, learning, preparing to fight the same fight until real change takes hold. Aces vs. Mercury match. So what happens next? The league has two choices. Dig in, let a lockout happen, and pray the public blames the players. Or return to the table, seriously, with answers, not just offers. With numbers, not just press statements. And with commitment to a long-term vision that doesn't just look good in a tweet, but actually supports the athletes driving every dollar of this business. Because this is the moment. This is the tipping point. The future of the WNBA doesn't hinge on salary numbers. It hinges on whether it chooses to become a real partner to its players. And if it doesn't, then maybe this lockout won't just be about contracts. Maybe it'll be about rewriting the entire structure from the ground up. Let us know where you stand. Was rejecting the offer the bold move the league needed, or a dangerous gamble that risks throwing it all away? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit like if you're standing with the players. Share this video if you think the league's future deserves better, and don't forget to subscribe. We're tracking every twist in this showdown. And from the looks of it, things are just heating up